do all that. Hi, everybody. I think we're live. Barry and I were just talking in the pre-show about geeking out about our own personal data. I have gone in and started logging all my food with a lot of different parameters, and I have a full dashboard on
which I've got to say, I think is very impressive. I think that if you're going to have all that data, you might as well make it look pretty.
Yeah, exactly.
One of my things this year is to go and visit. So Wales, where I live in the UK, has lots of castles, a lot of castles. And so in order to learn about where, because we only moved to Wales, 4 years ago, in order to learn about it, I was like, right, I want to go and visit a castle. We started off with a castle a month. So I wanted to visit 12 castles in the year. And then lockdown happened. And so for 2 years, we just didn't visit any. I think we visited one. And so this year I've gone like, right, we're going to do it. We're going to do 52. I'm going to do one castle a week. 52 castles we're doing. And so I've got a spreadsheet. I've got a spreadsheet of all the castles that there are in Wales. And I'm going to mark them off when I've visited them. But I haven't got a cool dashboard. Like because Excel will do some mapping now, some mapping data. So I need to play with that a little bit. But I need to have a funky dashboard of maybe like visits, time per visit, quality of visit. Did I like the castle? Was it a ruin? All that type of thing.
Yeah.
There's one day we went to 2 castles, and one in the morning it was literally it was a small stumpy corner left of a castle. And he was like, "That's not much of a castle," but it obviously was a castle and all that sort of stuff. And then went to another
Check
one.
it off the list. Yeah.
So I had a twofer. So I mean, I've got a stock of castles. There's like one more. I didn't go last weekend because of work was really busy, and this weekend work's going to be really busy. So I'll have used up my my backlog. I'm going to have to get some more castles in. But there we go. But yeah, so more data dashboarding. We like data dashboarding.
Yes. You know what? I should probably show it for everyone watching here, just in case. Like here's my data dashboard. There's probably some revealing information here. I
can guess all your passwords from that.
Yeah, I guess so. For people listening later, patrons, I can I can make this available for you, but I'd recommend just checking out the video if you can, because it's kind of cool. Like I said, I'm really proud of this dashboard with all my data. And right now I'm only looking at 5 days of data or something like that. So it's not that much, but this came because my therapist was like, "Hey, you should probably log all your food." And I was like, "You're probably right."
Did they ask you to log all the parameters, or have you just gone human factors crazy and said, "Oh, I know I can measure all of this"?
Okay, so there are some things on there that I have added myself.
See, I knew you would have done.
Yeah, I've added a couple myself just to pad it out, because there are the reason I added them to begin with was because I felt like the data that I wanted to see wasn't in the log.
Mm-hmm.
It was much more focused on feelings, and that's completely valid. And I do have some things on there that like feeling full before and after a meal. I have that on there. But the other thing that I didn't have on there was estimated calories, and that really forces me to stop and go, okay, what am I putting in my mouth? How much of this thing am I putting into my body? Do I pull out a scale and actually measure it, or do I estimate? Yeah. I've been doing the estimation, but it really gets me to think about it, and that's kind of the important thing. I've also added kind of the other thing I've added, I guess, was the calmness before and after, or the stress level before and after. I wanted to see, kind of does eating soothe my stress out? Am I eating because I'm stressed? Are there things that are happening while I'm eating that makes me more stressed? And
small children at the table, I would have thought.
Yeah. So anyway, there's just a couple things in there that I thought was lacking, and so I've added them. So anyway, we got a show tonight. Man, this if you are listening to this later, please do it at 2 times the speed, I guess is the moral of the story tonight. But we'll talk about why that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going through the show notes right now, Barry, and pulling out some interesting facts from another supporting article on e-learning.
Oh, check you out.
If you see that, that is what I'm doing right now.
Open up. Oh, there we go. Open up said article.
Add this as like additional support here.
Yeah, see, it's interesting. I've done a fair bit of work with people on sort of e-learning and all that sort of stuff, and it's interesting. We need to talk about
yeah. Anyway, so yeah, we're doing a show. I just I like froze up there for a second. We have the music going. Yeah, you're typing.
Yeah.
I feel like I got to talk to fill the space here. How's everybody doing tonight? Just generally, I hope everybody is doing well.
Where are you?
Yeah, where are you?
Where in the world?
Yeah, where are you doing? Okay.
We need to. It'd be really good to be able to have almost the the chats that are going on, and have them bleed over into the show a bit more as well. That would be quite cool.
Yeah, I want to get better about that, and I try to pull them in. So it works well during the story. It does not work so well during the "it came from" section unless it's directly pertaining to the thing. It could work during one more thing.
It could. I guess it only works with the "it came from" if the person it came from, like we had one of the other episodes where the person it came from. And
if they're watching live, then then it makes it a great discussion. Let's see here. So yeah, we have some supporting evidence about e-learning here.
I'm putting some bits in about different types of progression. Because e-learning really only supports one type.
Yeah.
And have you got anything about group work? We'll put this in as well at this point.
Man, I am really feeling the lack of like an energy drink today. I usually have one right before the show. I feel much lower energy today. I'm trying to not be low energy. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, no, having energy drinks is not good. They're bad. I sort of seen like the amount of sugar that they put in them things, and my daughter was she was having like 2 or 3 of them a day. And some of the guys that we share the office with, they can be drinking like 3, 4, 5 of these a day, and I'm like going, wow, that's really bad for you. And they're like, yeah, you just had an entire pot of coffee, and I'm like, yeah, fair comment. But I don't know whether having just a straight pot of coffee is as bad. The person I was doing my fitness stuff with was saying, if you drink coffee, it makes your heart beat faster, therefore you burn more calories. And I was like, I like that. That's good.
To be fair, I do the sugar-free, the sugar-free energy drinks. So they're not packed with sugar. They're probably still not great for you, but yeah. I think we have enough for this main discussion. What are you thinking? There's a lot in the article that we can pick through.
There's a lot we can dip into there to keep
going. If we're good there, then let's keep moving. So then Yeah, we need it came from.
Yeah. I've been through the thing. Let me just pull up my Discord.
Hey, James is watching on LinkedIn. Thank you, James. Great to watch the podcast. I love my coffee, Bart.
Fair enough.
Maybe Coffee Berry.
James.
Or is
Yeah.
Berry? There you go.
Yeah, he's still only
Berry.
put 1 hour in there. Come on, James, spell my name properly. James is really cool. He came into our office a couple of months ago now and recorded some stuff for the Welsh government around how we were doing innovation and what sort of business we were and all that sort of stuff. And it was really weird having all the focus and you having to sort of explain what you do and all that sort of stuff and sort of show off about your business, but he made it really, really easy and really enjoyable to do. So great to see you there, James. You do need to come back in, actually, because I think it'd be quite glad to do a bit more. Right, where's the... It came... There we go.
It came from...
He deleted his comment. So I ticked a few whilst I was sat in front of the TV earlier, because that's the way
that's a good thing to do. I guess.
But I also get Amanda to go through them with me. To sort of say, would this be interesting? Would that be interesting? And get a comment on the story as well, because then I don't have any of my own thoughts because I'm married, you see. So, James, don't. You make me blush.
Barry's a wizard in front of the camera, just for everyone listening. You know what? I think we need a slight change in the background music. I feel like this is like putting me to sleep. We should.
He's very zen.
Yeah, we should get something going on. Like
you need some 90s
background. A little higher energy. This is a little higher energy. Let's see if we can find something more higher energy.
Working up there. So are these all background music you bought, or is this all stuff that's available in Restream?
This is all Restream. I'm just seeing what's available here. I think
I've never really played with it before. As in the music, I tend to go without music, I guess.
I think Lounge is probably going to be the winner here. This is pretty high energy. I mean high energy for like background music. I was gonna say. All right, we'll stick with this. It's got my leg twitching, so that's good.
Okay. That's probably just the lack of a energy drink.
It's probably the meds.
So there was one I thought was interesting. It's not really good. It came from, but I thought it was an interesting one on there, which was using Figma to host a portfolio.
Okay, yeah, that one's more design.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought. It was interesting about the way that they were on about pulling all this stuff together and then saying, "Oh, should we use that?" And it's like, well, we spoke about something similar. I think a few episodes ago, where you're like, if that's what the company uses, then use it. If they don't, and it's going to make it look stupid, it's going to be difficult for them to get to see. Then that's a straight up usability issue. Don't use it.
Hey, what about this one? How do you describe your overall happiness in this field? Do you love what you do day to day? Are you good? Do you have a good work-life balance?
Yes. Yeah, let's do that. That's really pertinent to how we both are at the moment as well.
Yeah, I like that. Let's use that one. All right, so
there was one here which I thought, and I guess it's just I would say it's very American. So it was tipping and user experience. Should you, if you've got, how do we bring in tipping into UX design? I guess. I thought if you've done a good UX, then the boss the company tips you for that. I was like, really?
No, the answer is you just pay your employees better.
Or pay your bills on time. And so something that helps get the service in check. And I was like, that's mad.
Look, I guess the exception would be freelance work, right? You know, if someone's doing freelance, then I can see where you charge kind of a baseline cost. I mean, ideally you would build all this into your baseline cost, but then somebody I could see somebody tipping in that situation where it's like, hey, I really liked this work. Very good on you. I want to give you a little bit extra, and maybe you put me at the front of the line next time.
I guess in the gig side, I mean, the gig side of things does do that. So if you go to a gig marketplace or something, then you can tip. Thing. But
right.
if I invoice somebody for my work and they come back and said, I want to give you more money because you're awesome, which clearly would happen a lot, obviously, that would just give my my bookkeeper a headache.
Right. Exactly. It's like, well,
where's the invoice for this? For this extra? Can you just not? It would be an awful thing to say, isn't it? Can you not pay me so much? I get the offer, thank you very much. Can you just buy me a box of chocolates instead? Or not chocolates at the moment because I'm trying to lose weight. Right, where was the? Oh, there was one there about how do you answer the interview question about your processes? Oh, your process approach to UX design. I'm fairly sure we did that, a very similar one to that.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Did you see the one about project management, micromanagement?
Not yet. I'm working my way from the bottom up.
Okay, well,
from top down, I guess, from last week to this week.
Yeah, I'm just doing that quicker than you are. So I quite like that one. It's a long one, but
let's see here. There's one here. Never mind. I ignore me. There was one that I thought would be a good question, and then I read further and was like, no, it's not really great.
Which one was it of interest?
It was would it be better to take study notes the same way you write documentation?
Yeah, I saw that one.
And I was, what are you talking about? We could talk about job security for UX design. Does it get better with experience? That one's an interesting one. We could talk about job security just generally. Or maybe it's a good pre-show question. I think that's a good pre-show question.
Yeah, yes, because we've got in short, does it get better? No, not really. There you go, done.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of job security, like there's always going to be UX work. There's always going to be, and human factors work for that matter. There's always going to be an instance where humans are interacting with something. Even if it's an automated system, there's still things that have to be figured out with where the human plays into those. And so this field is going to be around for a long time.
And you always get that interaction, don't you? Because we're always going to have humans are always going to want to interface with stuff, and engineers are always going to think they can design stuff and implement it, and we know they can't. So that whole intersection, you're always going to need us there. In terms of job security in a single job in HF, always been there and been rock solid for like 40 years. I don't think it will. I think that our domain is being very adaptive. It always has been, always will be. If you don't keep up with the changes, with the fashions almost, then you're going to get stale. I mean, all the people who, just the intersection between UX and human factors, that's still been seen as a brand new shiny thing. I mean, I've always had the belief that actually they're one and the same thing. Just a different perspective, but
big umbrella.
Yeah, but the UX community doesn't see it like that. So
no,
there's a massive evolution there. So yeah, it's an interesting one. And then if you're a contractor or a freelancer, then it's different again because you're only as good as your last project. And so if there's loads of work or there's loads of companies developing their own in-house support, then that means less work for freelancers. So, and everything goes, it goes through evolutions. Freelancers tend to do better in recessions, which we could be heading towards again, depressingly. Anyway, that went on a tangent. I'm going back to the depressed piece again. speaking about reading about ones that weren't quite what you thought they were. There was one moving from quality systems to human factors. I was like, oh, we're going to do about quality, and then going to that, and it turns out it wasn't.
Yeah.
Which is a bit,
Yeah.
There's using automation as a UX designer. I thought it was going to be talking about the implementation of automation, and it wasn't.
Yeah, I saw that question and I almost picked it just as a springboard for a larger conversation about how we use automation in our jobs and where there are opportunities for automation. But then, thinking about it, it's like the type of automation I was thinking about in that moment were things like Excel charts that, sort of update with more data as you get them, and being able to sort of automate your metrics. That has been a big, I guess, thing for me. I don't. Again, I think we're answering in the pre-show here, and that's fine. We got 10 minutes till showtime. We just got to pick a couple more of these. But I think that's the type of automation that I think of. There are other things like Zapier or some of these automation workflows that will integrate with other services that will kind of make your life easier in some ways, harder in others. All right, you know what? I've looked through the list. Let's actually dig into the bank, because I feel like there's probably some in the bank that we could talk about, and I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom here to see what we got.
Redesign. What about what's the future one?
I thought we talked about that one. Did we not talk about that one?
We might have talked about something similar.
Oh, that would have been a good one to pull in last week, I think, with the metaverse talk.
It's true. Lots of interviews about the metaverse at the moment. We clearly kicked off a good thing.
Organize and share interview data. You know what? I like this question about sort of a process for organizing data, especially after this conversation about the data that I have up right here right now.
Yeah. Check it in.
Okay, let's do that one, and then let's pick one more.
Have we not done before that junior to mid-level role?
I feel like we have.
Well, we've done something very similar to it.
I don't think we've actually tackled this one, because this one's getting at now I'm moving into a mid-level role and I'm nervous about the jump. Like, basically, what is a mid-level role? How does it differ from a junior level role?
Yeah, check it in.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so I think we have the three. Let's then stop it. High energy.
It's
high energy, Barry.
We are. Got my nice top on as well. It's warm, soporific. I'm gonna maybe have to open the door at some point just to.
I am freezing over here. My hands are so cold. It is. I think I'm trying to look at the weather right now. I have it in a couple places. No, it's not 45.
I couldn't work out what that was. I was like, it was like a clicking on the door or something, and then I realized it's just the background music, and my headphones being better than I realized it. I got these headphones on a recommendation of a friend, and I didn't think they would make that much difference. They really do. They're really good. I've never spent so much money on a set of headphones before.
A question in the chat: robot semi trucks. You got thoughts on that?
Yes, please. I think we should have them. I mean, it sort of goes. I mean, it goes along with the idea of what we said about infrastructure. If the infrastructure is there, then why wouldn't you? You're essentially putting them on. It's essentially putting them on rails almost, isn't it? I think they're it would make people's lives easier. I think they would work better. But then as soon as you get into that bit, why not just a train? Are they any different to a train except they can go anywhere you want?
From a U.S. perspective, right? It's probably different worldwide, but from a U.S. perspective, we have a lot of infrastructure for roads around here, and there are rails, but I think and they are used. I think what would happen if we did autonomous transportation vehicles or autonomous shipping containers, right? You think about like on a road, you could have a train, right? Essentially where all these vehicles are communicating with each other to the point where they are just drafting behind each other. They dominate a lane, presumably the far left lane, so that way no one has to worry about getting kind of around them. It's kind of like a HOV lane where it's just this continuous stream of trucks going to where they need to go, and they all communicate with each other. One kind of peels out and goes off if it needs to get off the freeway. But this will be really great in terms of reducing accidents with semi trucks, because something happens at the front, then it can communicate to everybody else behind to just brake and prepare for it. There's also a driver shortage here in the States, and so I think all this together.
There is in Europe as well, and I think it is quite a key thing. I mean, but also just things like fuel efficiency, because if they're all working harmoniously together, communicating, then they can actually drive closer together. They can so that therefore cuts down your fuel usage, etc., etc. They can drive them the most efficiently they can. That's kind of the same with almost all autonomous vehicles, if they're done in the right way, though, that the savings you can make, as long as the infrastructure is there to support it, is really good. I mean,
there are issues, of course, with this. So, like, not every company is going to want to play nice with each other. They're going to kind of keep it in their own, company, and
people. Yeah, I mean that's the that's the capitalist output, isn't it? It's the wanting to get your margin in and all that sort of stuff, and which is just the nature of what it is that we live like on a day-to-day basis. But it's you kind of need that to make everything else work. So it's not easy.
All right, we got 2 minutes before showtime. Do you have something for one more thing this week?
I do. I'm there. I'm prepared. I'm done.
Great. Excellent. I'm going to type up just this intro really quick. Cool. Talk about our happiness. We organize interview data and we'll talk about jump from junior role, mid-level role. I don't even know if I have any programming notes or community updates. I mean, I've just been, pushing the lab.
Well, we have another meeting tomorrow. So.
We do have a meeting tomorrow, yes. Our second. But that's not really like a outward-facing programming note. That's like you could join the lab. Actually, we have a lot of interest in the lab. So maybe I'll restate it.
It's worth doing. I've bought myself a bottle of wine ready. So
all right. Okay. Hey, It is 30 after the hour, so we are going to go ahead and get started with the show. So if you are watching, stick around with us. After this short video, we'll get into the real deal here. Stick around.
Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Human Factors Cast. This is episode 233. We are recording this live on January 27th, 2022. I'm your host, Nick Roome. I'm joined today by Mr. Barry Kirby.
Hey there, great to be here.
It is great to be here. We are fairly low energy tonight, but we will hopefully bump that energy up through the roof as we talk about the topic tonight, because it's actually really interesting. We got a great show for you tonight. We'll actually be talking about learning at twice the speed. So I'm going to talk really slowly, so that way if you are listening to this at twice the speed afterwards, my words and Barry's words are much clearer for you to listen to. And later, we're going to be answering some questions from the community about our happiness in the field of human factors, how we organize our interview data, and we'll talk about the jump from a junior role to a mid-level role. But first, we have a quick programming note here, or a community update for you all. Once again, I'm going to plug our Human Factors Cast digital media lab. We have a lab where we are experimenting with different media for digital outputs. So what that means is we are experimenting with blog posts, podcasts, different ways to interact with the Human Factors community online. If this excites you, if you have ideas, please reach out to us. We are always looking for more people to join this lab, and we've kicked off 2022 with a couple really interesting work threads, so stay tuned for that. But we know why you're here. You're here for Human Factors news, so let's go ahead and get into it. That's right. This is the part of the show all about Human Factors news. Barry, what is our news story this week?
So this week we're talking about how much do students learn when they double the speed of their class videos. So recorded lectures have become a routine part of course instruction during the COVID-19 pandemic. And college students often try to pack more learning into a shorter span by watching these recordings at double their normal speed, or even faster. But does comprehension suffer as a result? According to a new UCLA study, the answer is, surprisingly, no, up to a point. The study has shown that students retain information quite well when watching lectures at up to twice their actual speed. But once they exceed that speed, things then get a bit blurry. So the strategy of speeding up videos may not be effective with especially complex or difficult course material, the researchers noted. So, Nick, are you a double speed consumer or are you a single track person?
I am a double speed consumer. I listen to everything, if I can, at a higher speed. And this is largely because I value my time. And when I consume these things, I want to consume a lot of it. And so when I listen to podcasts, it's at twice the speed or sometimes slightly higher. It really depends on the hosts of the podcast. And we'll talk about our experiences, but yes, I am a more than one times speed person for everything. Barry, are you a more than one time speed person?
No, I'm not. I'm a single speed, mainly because I find that there's a level of depth that you lose. I want to get engaged with the host, with them, and what is it, their nuances and things like that. There's a level of richness there that I think you lose when you speed up. And fundamentally, I just think it sounds a bit weird. I just think that the sound just doesn't work for me. Something about this article as well is that I also wonder, but what about the other side of the equation, the lecturers or the people who are making that sort of stuff? If so you're listening to this at twice the speed, you're only getting half as much of us. Is that quality for you? I don't know. So yeah, I don't know. I think I've never actually tried it that much in terms of getting stuff in. So maybe it's something I need to experiment with to see whether it works. But fundamentally, if we pair this back, is this actually a thing? Can you actually learn this quickly? Can you give us some insights around the e-learning maybe?
Yeah, so I want to quickly jump on one of your points really quick here. So I think you mentioned the medium and sort of what the, I guess, creator thinks of people enjoying their content at twice the speed. For something like a podcast, we put this on every week. I don't care if people listen to this at at 2 times the speed. In fact, I encourage it because we sit here for an hour, and if you can get that done in half an hour, then you are getting our full conversation about today's latest news in a half an hour, and that's your time. For something like where maybe you're not learning or you are just enjoying something, so like a television show or a movie, that I can see being a little bit more strict with. Yes, I want people to watch this at 1 times the speed, because in instances where there's an awkward pause or tension between characters, I can see that playing differently when it's not in real time. And so if it's a piece of art, I feel like you are then getting outside of that 2 times speed. But yes, we are talking about learning specifically with this. So let's use e-learning as kind of a basis, right? And there's some research on e-learning. And we're talking about e-learning here because in this study, we're talking about learning at twice the speed, and you can't really do that in a controlled way other than looking at videos and playing them back at different speeds. So let's get into it. There's a couple different, I guess, takeaways with e-learning. Maybe we talk about those at kind of a high level here. Generally, I think e-learning as a whole is more effective than many people realize. And I think as we're starting to experiment with some of these hybrid situations where you have students at school in the classroom and e-learning, and they're kind of switching off, there can be, obviously, I guess there's no real substitute for being in-person, hands-on learning in a classroom environment. I think that we can all agree that that is probably the most effective, although I'd like to talk to a researcher on this. But we're talking about e-learning, and it can still be effective when done correctly, right? Yeah, there's some research that suggests that when you are using video instead of the usual form of teaching, you might get a slight bump in grade, but nothing significant there. And it all depends on how people learn too, right? If they are kind of doing a video lesson in addition to an existing class, you have a greater impact, almost a full letter grade. And then when you have sort of when video learning outperformed in-person learning, there's kind of larger implications here about flipped learning or remote learning and in-person lectures. So there's still some inconclusive evidence about that. But I think generally it is effective, and it might be more effective than people realize. Do you want to talk a little bit about why it is effective?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I did some lectures more recently, and I did the same course. I think we might mention it on a previous episode. I did the same course twice. I did one in person and then one remote. And it was interesting that the ability to engage people in person on that topic was easier than doing that online. But then when speaking to the lecturer, he was very much in favor of some of the things that they just know that they have to get some of the facts, some that is easier to do and more consistent to do via video than it was him standing up and giving that lecture time and time again, because he was affected by all sorts of things. If he was having a bad day, then his own energy didn't go into the learning the same way. So, but in terms of why is video learning effective, as long as you've got the learner there, they can control the learning material. They can work at the pace that they want to. They can, if they want to miss something or they don't get something, they can go back and refresh it, or they can, as we've talked about, maybe consume it faster than anybody else. And also, there is research that suggests that humans are hardwired to learn best when they're looking at both auditory and visual information and be able to correlate them together. There is that question around, can video learning be effective for teaching skills as well as facts? So skills, obviously, we talked about muscle memory and things like that. But they do think that that video learning is effective for teaching more complex skills and behaviors. Do you want to talk about this next point? Because I have no idea what a K-12 student is.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a minute. I want to break this point down a little bit. Have you used e-learning to sort of, I guess, learn a skill? Like watch a YouTube video to like for woodworking or something.
Yeah, I have, but I don't know whether it's. I was trying to think about this because I've at the moment certainly consume a lot of things on like forging, which I haven't done yet. But the woodworking one, there's the John Malecki YouTube channel, and I watch a lot of his stuff around how, because he's very good at teaching, I think, or explaining how he does stuff. And I was trying to whilst we were talking about this, I was trying to work out, am I just picking up the general things as an instructional video almost about what he's done and the steps he's taking, or am I taking on board the skills he's doing about how he does stuff? And I'm not entirely sure, because I don't get to go and do exactly the sort of things that he's done. I only sort of do an approximation of that, but maybe that's enough. I don't know. What do you think? Have you taken on board any sort of audiovisual material for skills rather than behaviors, rather than just knowledge and facts?
Yeah, and I think you have a very good point here when talking about skills versus facts and where is the bleed, because I think for me, I've learned techniques from these YouTube videos or online courses or anything, and I've learned like coding from these, and that's a skill. And so I feel that in some cases, knowing the technique or learning the technique is learning the skill, where there are fact-based things too, right? Like let's just take this is a very obscure example, but your worm saw won't go unless you oil it, and that you need to oil it. Now, how to oil it, that is a procedure that you need to perform on that worm drive saw. And so you need to, kind of take out the pieces and parts in a certain order. And that is a skill. So you look at the technique, but the fact that you need to do it is the fact part of it. I don't know. That's one example. There are other examples. So, there's somebody who might teach counseling, and this is a firsthand account from one of the sources we have here. It's really hard to demonstrate proper counseling in a lecture because you can't bring a client to do that in front of a group of 400 students. But if you do role play, that seems kind of contrived. But when this person has created videos of counseling sessions that can be much more real, they can be practiced, they can really focus on what that teacher is trying to do. You can much more easily stop them, sort of annotate the video live in the moment, or not live. If we're talking about a video playback, you can annotate it and really sort of note some of these important parts of the skill and say, hey, did you notice here how I use this type of question? And so I think that type of learning for these complex skills can be effective. Okay.
So just to almost a counterfactual, almost to a certain extent. So recently, as I've sort of mentioned before, I've got into American football, and the only actual sport I now watch, and the Rams are in the Final Four, which is very exciting. I've been trying to work out how they play, and because I've watched some of the videos on it, I'm still not convinced I could go out and be the next quarterback or the next whatever just by watching them videos, because there's clearly a load of skill in that gets you up to that level and they make it look easy. But again, maybe that's not because it's not an instructional video as such. I don't know. It's I think there's some things that it's around you being able to mimic what you see when you're watching the video. So counseling, you can get yourself into that zone of, yes, you can see it, repeat it, do it. But if you're watching something that you can't necessarily repeat, is that a good instructional video? we've probably lived that quite a long time now. It's because it's interesting. Do you want to pick up another one?
Yeah, you mentioned the K-12 students. I'm going to talk about this briefly. So here in the States, we call it K-12, and this is just like, I guess, primary school. It's from kindergarten to 12th grade. So
Right.
this is
Okay, got you.
children from the age of 4 or 5 all the way up to the age of 18, and they are learning their skills. And so there's not really evidence that would support either way that this would be detrimental, I guess, or it wouldn't be not that. Sorry, the e-learning would not be applicable to these groups. And so I guess there's still more research that needs to be done. It's just a point that we want to talk about here, especially as we're talking about e-learning, and at least in this context, it's college students with the article that we're talking about today. But I do want to mention the K-12 thing. Do you want to talk about some of the limitations? Because I feel like you are pretty heavy on the limitations, and I think you want to pick them apart.
It's not necessarily the limitation. I think it's just having a thorough understanding of the value of video, and sometimes we can sort of see it as certainly what's came out of the pandemic is we think it's going to solve everything. It's like no, I think it's used in the right place. It's a really, really good thing. So the thing that we don't know is how it all works in practice, and how it works, I guess, around the world. So if you look at, we've talked about equality of opportunity and things like that in the past. What about places that don't have good access to internet, good access to, because you do need a certain level of technology to make sure that you can access this type of stuff, particularly if we're going to change the speed ratios of it, because you can't really do that with a bog standard VHS or Betamax video player. You're looking at digital, you're looking at YouTube, you're looking at that sort of thing to be able to do that. And then the education system this year is seeing really so many learners don't have the privilege of high-speed internet, and because normally you've got multi-student families as well, so that it's not just one student trying to consume video data, it's multiple siblings within the same home, maybe even parents trying to work as well, that we don't necessarily have that full speed of internet that we can make that work with. So it's not a one size fits all at the moment. We can't get to everywhere. We can't get to everywhere. We can't get to everybody. But it's certainly starting. I think we can't argue with the fact that a lot of students and a lot of educational organizations really stepped up to the plate when the pandemic hit, and generated an awful lot of video material, which saved a lot of children's education, because otherwise they wouldn't have had anything. So I think that we're still in a very much a learning time, and I think coming out of the pandemic, I think we'll see that balance of that hybrid learning, and we will find more real data, real life experiences about that. Do you want to talk about how educators respond to this research?
Yeah, so there's some, I guess, there's I guess from the perspective of educators, right? There are certain things that you can take, certain measures that you can take to kind of up your game, right? So as an educator, you can sort of improve the quality of your videos that you are sort of making for your classes or your YouTube videos or whatever you're doing, right? So I think in terms of this, there's some skills that you can learn, like editing, and sort of making sure that the content there is focused and I guess entertaining in a way, so that way people retain it better. There's also marginal upgrades that you can make, so like better recording equipment, high quality camera, teleprompter, these types of things. And in one case, there's an educator that's sort of embracing a flipped classroom. There's they go on to write that my classes no longer have anything that looks like a lecture. He says the classes are all students doing things, students hands-on, making mistakes, getting feedback, trying the things they've just seen online. And so very much relying on a community, or I guess if this educator is putting them together themselves, sort of providing resources and having them test those skills in a real environment. And I think That's a really, really important note, is that when you're trying to teach skills, you still have to practice them, but at least you know the techniques. And I think that is a really important thing to note. You have two different types of or class progression types. You want to talk about those?
Yeah, just really briefly, I think and it relates to kind of what the notes you were just making, because we've got to remember that if we are trying to push people forward, do they work together as a group or do they work together on their own? So there's, in sort of educational terms, there's this idea of variable mastery fixed time, or which really means that you've got a fixed period of time to get across a certain amount of content, and the group or the individuals will take on a certain amount of knowledge. So the mastery will change. They'll get to a minimum standard. Some will become better than others. But the main thing around that is that it's the time that's fixed. So you're with it for a term, 2 terms, 3 terms, whatever. Or the flip side of that is actually you can work on your own, and you're aiming to get to a certain level of mastery, so a fixed mastery, and you will stay in that course for as little or as long as it takes for you to do that. And so that's fixed mastery variable time. What we talked about with the videos, I think, really lends itself to fixed mastery variable time, because you are in complete control of the speed and pace of what you're doing. You can whittle through videos really, really quickly, or you can do it really slowly. I struggle to see how you can do that in more of a group session. How do you get that value of group working, of that sort of engagement? I think there's a part of it you can use it as preparation, you can use it that type of thing. But it's, if you go too far along to the video side of things, then do you lose that collaborative side of things? So again, just goes back to that. How do you get that balance right? What about your experiences with? I mean, we talked a bit about it already, but how have you consumed at double speed, and what sort of things does that lend itself to?
Yeah, good. Getting back on track. We talked a lot about sort of e-learning, and I think that was a good primer, because let's get back to the original article about the 2 times the speed. Is it effective? Is it not? And yes, let's talk about our experiences with 2 times the speed before we get into that. So for me, I listen to podcasts at twice the speed, sometimes higher. I listen to YouTube at twice the speed sometimes. I guess it's hard to quantify when I make that decision. I think it's more when I'm looking for information, I do it at twice the speed. When I am sort of watching a tutorial, I might even slow it down depending on how complex the task is. I think the ability to control the speed is a huge boon, though. I think that's a great thing to have. I haven't done any online conferences or online classes with this, but I have done things like conferences. And that's also something where I will go back and watch at twice the speed. It is information that I am taking in, and there's no live component on a pre-recorded thing. And so I'll go back and watch it at twice the speed. It doesn't bother me. You have a couple examples here too. Do you want to talk about what you use 2 times speed for, if anything?
Well, yeah, I also sort of use them examples of things I don't. So again, sort of podcasts I do at single speed, because I think it goes back to what you said almost right at the beginning, is that I almost consider them, it's not just knowledge, it's the art form. And I think there's a level of that type of thing. So one of the things I'm trying to do at the moment is learn Welsh. And I couldn't do that at twice speed, even if I want. I can barely do it at single speed. But that ability to control stuff is really useful, because again, you just mentioned about slowing things down. Being able to control that sort of thing in Duolingo has been really, really useful. The other bit I was sort of playing around with was, how do we deal with things on hybrid? So I'm going to be going to do a lecture in a couple of weeks to the engineering community, and they've just dropped it on me that it's going to be a hybrid. So I'm going to be sat doing a live stream, but also there's going to be people in the room as well. So that's almost going to be quite hard for them, because for the people who would want to consume it faster, then they just won't be able to, because we having to keep the speed the same, because I'm also presenting it live to a live audience. And I'd be interested in your thoughts on that, whether we should be bothering with the whole hybrid stuff at all, or should we be doing it twice, or do it live and then release it as a thing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, look, my ideal scenario, since there are Zoom calls that are recorded all the time now, is you let the Zoom call happen unless you need to be there for input, and then you watch it afterwards, right? Like that is kind of how I operate for certain calls, right? There's calls where I don't need to necessarily be involved with the discussion, but I want to be aware of that, and so I'll watch those after the fact at twice the speed, and that saves me time because I'm still consuming the whole thing. I have time for other things now. I didn't have to sit through the whole thing live. In terms of your example, I think for the people, if it is recorded, then the people who want to be there virtually just listen to it afterwards at twice the speed. But that's my thoughts on it. Now let's get back to this article here. I thought maybe we could glance over some of the studies, how they did this exactly, and kind of what the difference is between them. So I'll start us off here. This is done at UCLA, so kind of general college student population, right? Basically, 85% of UCLA students surveyed reported they speed watched lecture videos. And so the researchers kind of engaged them on a series of experiments to see how these fast speeds engage or sort of affected learning and knowledge retention. In the first experiment, they kind of looked at 231 undergrads into 4 groups. They had them watch 2 videos that were 13 to 15-minute lectures, one on the Roman Empire, another on real estate appraisals. One group watched at normal speed, one at 1.5 times the speed, one at double speed, and one at 2.5 times the speed. And they were instructed not to pause the videos or take any notes. So already it's kind of an artificial environment. That's kind of one of my observations. So after these viewings, they kind of looked at comprehension tests to see how much they understood from them. 20 multiple choice true or false questions. Normal speed group averaged about 26 correct answers out of 40. Double time group scored about 25. So it's about the same as the 1.5 speed group. And then for the 2.5 speed group, they didn't do well. They did 22 questions correctly on average. So I guess the significant difference is anything above 2 is where it starts to decline. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about this next part here?
Yeah, so the interesting bit about that was then a week later, the same groups were given different tests related to the 2 videos to assess what they'd retained. So then the normal speed group averaged 24 out of 40. The 1.5 speed and double speed group averaged 21. And the 2.5 speed students averaged 20. So surprisingly, video speed, we can see, has had actually little effect on both immediate and delayed comprehension until learners exceeded twice the normal speed. So that's quite an interesting piece. I mean, actually, overall, what maybe a thing that they don't mention is actually they're still not getting very high scores anyway. Out of 40, they're still only getting around half of them, or just over half of them correct. So maybe that's the choice of subject, the Roman Empire and real estate appraisals.
Yeah.
Maybe if it was the Star Wars trilogy, it might be different. But they also looked at a few other bits as well. I don't know whether you want to quickly mention the other bits that they looked at.
Yeah, so they looked at some other combinations, I guess, of speed watching and normal speed viewing of these 2 videos. Again, I just want to mention that none of these are being compared to in person. That's not what we're looking at here. We're looking at just whether or not online learning can be affected by this. And so I'd imagine in person, you might see a slight bump to those answers. That's just 2 cents. So they looked at sort of the twice at double speed, once at normal speed. So they kind of had one group of students watch the videos at double speed twice in succession, and another watch them just once at normal speed. And both groups answered about 25 out of 40. So there was no difference watching it twice at 2 times speed or once at normal speed. You're getting the same content twice at 2 times the speed, which would indicate that maybe there is, some additional information that's being taken in there. There's another experiment that they did where they watched the videos once at normal speed while another viewed them initially at double speed, then a week later at double speed again. And then when tested a week after that. The first group that watched the videos, and shortly after the second group viewed those videos a second time, the speed watchers performed better, averaging 24 out of 40 versus 22 for the one-time normal group. So I don't think this is a significant difference there, but still interesting to note that the double speed is performing well. You want to talk about the switching speeds portion of the study?
Yeah. So a group that watched the videos at the normal speed, then at double speed, scored slightly better immediately after the viewings than a group that watched at double speed and then normal speed. So 26 versus 24. So not statistically significant, but interesting. When the other two groups followed the same viewing procedure and were quizzed a week after watching, they both scored 25. So actually the longer term retention was exactly the same. So when we look at this, people generally speak at a rate of 150 words a minute. And previous research has shown that comprehension begins to decline as speech approaches double speed, around 275 words a minute. So, yeah, I mean, I guess maybe some of this isn't that surprising when you look at that general fact in of itself.
Yeah. One kind of last note from me over here. So this is actually a note from the researchers here. They said they were surprised and impressed that students could learn and retain this knowledge at faster speeds. And they kind of sent a quote here. College students can save time and learn more efficiently by watching pre-recorded lectures at faster speeds if they use the time saved for additional studying. So that's the key here, is that you are saving time, but you should use that to bolster what you've learned, right? But they shouldn't exceed double the normal playback speed. Their study didn't reveal significant drawbacks to watching lecture videos at up to double the normal speed, but they caution against kind of using this strategy to simply save time. Students can enhance their learning if they spend the time saved on activities such as reviewing flashcards or taking practice tests. So again, it's kind of how you spend your time. So you kind of get the content and then you use that remaining time that you would have had to bolster it. Any final thoughts on this, Barry, before we move on?
Yeah, I guess final thought for me really is it would be interesting to know just how mentally fatiguing this is. So if again, just going on that bit about around time, if you consumed it at twice the speed, therefore I would think that you're mentally having to work harder to comprehend what's going on. Do you need it to use that extra time to then recover from that? It'd be interesting to do, I guess, mental workload analysis on that as an outcome. But fundamentally, yeah, if we can identify those bits that are really good for video learning and get that information across, then let's make the most of the technology. I'm in.
Yeah, if you've been listening to this at twice the speed, let us know how that went in the comments or in our Discord or wherever you can get to us. But for now, I want to thank you, our patrons, this week for selecting the topic. It was actually tied on Twitter, so our patrons selected this topic for this week. And thank you to our friends over at UCLA for our news story this week. If you want to follow along, we do post the links to the original articles on our weekly roundups on our blog. You can also join us, like I said, on our Slack or Discord for more discussion on these stories. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back to see what's going on in the human factors community right after this.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our weekly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and Human Factors Minute, a Patreon-only weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.
Yes, huge thank you as always to our patrons. And we especially want to thank our honorary Human Factors Cast staff patrons, Michelle Tripp. Patrons like you keep the show running. Thank you for your continued support. I want to jump into Human Factors Minute. So this is something that we do for our patrons. And this is something that I have a ton of fun producing on my end. This is like the little commercial there said, it's a standalone podcast where we break down interesting, obscure human factors topics 1 minute at a time. We have 100 as of this recording. We have 107 episodes. Total time available for people to listen to is about 2 hours and 8 minutes and 3 seconds. The average length of episode is about 72 seconds. So you're actually getting a little bit more than a minute a week. And just a couple notes here. The first 10 episodes are available to everyone, as well as the Team Seas minutes that we did as part of the Team Seeds effort last year. Those are available to everyone for free. You can check out our Patreon to see those. Human Factors Minutes also on Spotify, if that's something that you want to do is pay for it through there. I don't know why you do that instead of Patreon. Makes no sense to me, but it's available. You can do it. And it is the exclusive way to hear Blake's voice at this point. We're still working on getting him back soon. Bear with us. But it is the only place you can hear him for now because it's pre-recorded. It's not live. So you can hear him there. And Barry, we got to get you on some of those Human Factors minutes, man. You're a permanent fixture of the show now, so we got to get you rolling. All right. Like I said, thank you to our patrons. If you're interested, check it out. Anyway, let's get into the next part of the show.
It came from.
Yikes, what a bad transition that was. All right, so this week we got this is the part of the show where we research all over the internet to bring you topics that the community is talking about, that they are raising their voices and either complaining or asking or any of the above. We answer some of these in the pre-show. Anyway, if you find these answers useful, give us a like to help other people find this content wherever you're at. We have 3 tonight, so let's go ahead and get into the first one here. This is by Lion Turtle Land on the user experience subreddit. It's a fairly easy one to start us off with tonight, Barry. How would you describe your overall happiness in this field? And of course, we're talking about the human factors field here, or UX, or whatever you're in, right? Do you love what you do day to day? Do you have a good work-life balance?
So, do I love what I do day to day? Yes, I absolutely do. I'm very lucky that I can, basically running my own business, I can focus that business in exactly the way I want. I can do the tasks that I enjoy doing, and I can delegate the stuff I don't like doing. That's brilliant. Do I have a good work-life balance? Absolutely not. I am absolutely rubbish at this. I'm very good at telling everybody else to make sure they take holidays, they don't work too hard, they take the appropriate time off if I think people are getting stressed out. I'm very good at telling other people that they need to be able to chill and all that sort of stuff. I'm really rubbish at doing it for myself. So yeah, in short, yes, I love what I do. No, I don't have very good work-life balance. What about you, Nick?
Well, hang on. There's a third question there. Are you happy?
Oh, am I happy? Oh, yes, absolutely. And I think that's where the privilege is, isn't it? It's one of the things I think we are very lucky in working in this field is we have an opportunity to get involved in any project that really, because every project involves people, and we can normally it's very rare we cannot make a positive difference to a project or a product or a service. So it's always good to be able to go in and be able to see tangible change because you've gone in and you've done something. So yeah, I think I'm generally very happy with what I'm doing.
Yeah, for me, in the past, I've worked with personalities that have been difficult to sort of work with, kind of expecting the impossible and had really poor planning. And so, in that instance, where you are working with individuals that maybe don't play to strengths of employees, I think that can be a situation where you can be unhappy. This is a field where I think you can be happy with what you're doing, provided you do have that good work-life balance and you do love what you do every day. Right now, I'm fortunate enough to be in that position. I do have a great work-life balance. I think, my employer gives us, every third Friday off. So that way it's a wellness day, and they kind of make sure that we're taken care of, really good insurance, that kind of thing. So like The personal life is great, and it's flexible. I can step away from the computer as long as I don't have a meeting and get back to it later. And so I can kind of spend some time with my son during the day, which is invaluable. I love that. I love being able to spend time with my son. And then I can get back to work at night when everyone else is, asleep, and I can sit there and knock away some of these things. As long as I don't have meetings during the day, I can do that, right? In terms of loving what I do love what I do. I think I nerd out about data every day. And I nerd out about talking to people about what they do on a day-to-day basis. I love learning about the domains that I work in, and I love you have to have this sort of continuous love of learning, and sort of a continuous evaluation of what you know, because it always changes and the field changes, and you have to be with those changes. So overall, super happy. But I have been in the situation where you can be unhappy, and that's not great. So just know that happiness is out there, and if you are unhappy in your role, maybe explore other options. That's what I'd say. Okay, let's get into this next one here. How to organize and share interview data. This is by Baranam2 on the HCI subreddit. What would be the best way or best tool to analyze and share quantitative survey data? I have data from 40 people and questions and answers from 3 different surveys. They were each given. I want to sometimes view the data of all 3 surveys for one particular person, and then view how all 40 people are answered a certain way. So they're asking for a very specific answer here, but I'm going to broaden this and say, how do you organize your data generally? Do you have one spreadsheet? Do you have many spreadsheets? Do you have what's your process, Barry?
Well, I'm going to coin the phrase of, well, it depends, doesn't it? In the grand scheme of things, I think Excel is, certainly for sharing data, is my go-to tool. I know that there's much more sophisticated tools out there, but when you can play with the data, generally, one core sheet. Well, I say one core sheet with all your main data on it, and then use other sheets to then slice and dice the data. And certainly being able to then have different sheets with your different charts on. So try and cluster the similar charts together, but have your filters on the charts. So then you can really look at that and play with it. The more prep you can do in the background, and the more you can structure the questions so you can analyze them easier later on, the more effort you put in up front, the better the outcome is. So, I mean, obviously, from this question specifically, they've already done the data questionnaire, but the more prep you can put in beforehand will just give you massive outcomes. And the beauty of a good pivot table and a good pivot chart, it will work no end of wonders with it, because it just allows you to go into so much depth, I think. What about you? What's your go-to tool of choice when you're doing this type of thing?
Like you mentioned, it depends. I'm doubling down on merch tonight, so I have my It Depends shirt under my Human Factors cast sweater. Bring that up. Okay, so in terms of how I work, so I think there's some interesting questions about this, and there's some, I guess, parameters that you need to understand before you consider what constitutes I guess an individual Excel file, right? I'm also an Excel person, although I have used Google Sheets, and I kind of am slowly switching to Google Sheets just because I have access to it everywhere. It's a little bit easier to navigate mobilely. Anyway, the tool is irrelevant. What is relevant is how you organize your data. And so for me, I like to think about sort of a file, if you will, per task thread. So let's say I want overall metrics of all the things I've ever worked on. Well, I might capture certain data about that, like where it was, who we talked to, how many users we had, where I said where it was, so some of these overall data points. And then I think that might be one task thread. I'm not capturing all that data for from every single thing and putting it into one sheet, that's overkill.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say, I'm talking to users from a specific, I guess, group, that might be too resolute. I think what I would do is kind of combine, like let's say I'm doing a research thread of like figuring out what the best user interface for something would be. Pretty broad
Right.
by design, but multiple user groups interact with this interface. I'm gonna put it all in one spreadsheet. And I think, just being able to sort and filter by the user group is going to be enough to get me the data that I want and compare across those user groups as well. It's going to be all really relevant as long as the tasks kind of match what you're looking at for that research thread. Once you go beyond that research thread, I would open up a new file and do the things there. I don't know. It's hard to. This is a good question because it's hard to quantify from a research perspective what constitutes a new spreadsheet.
It is, because I'm quite a fan of just for not data protection, but for making sure I don't lose the data. So I don't mean data protection in terms of like GDPR and that sort of stuff, but I mean just I don't want to lose the core stuff. I tend to put all of my core data that I've received into one sheet, into one file. So multiple sheets within the same Excel file, raw data, all of it in there. Then save that, make a copy, and then start doing the analysis on the copy.
Yes.
And that I might start, stripping out. I might then sort the data into threads. It might be might be a single interface, or it might be a single scenario, or it might be whatever it is. Strip out the data that way. But I will always have a what I generally call my my safety belt. It's all gone wrong. I've got a couple of copies of the actual raw data. I can start from scratch again, because invariably you will end up putting some sort of really funky formula in that you end up pressing the wrong button at the wrong time and doing it. So back your data up, back the raw data up, because the amount I've seen, I mean, thankfully, it's only happened to me, I think, in 20 years, it's happened twice. And only one of them was truly my fault. The other one I fired somebody for. But it happens. And there's nothing worse than just going, if only I'd just done that. So yeah, don't mess with the raw data.
Losing your data sucks.
Yeah, badly.
All right, let's get into this last one here. This one is by Delirium Rostello on the user experience subreddit. How did you prepare to make a jump from a junior role to a mid-level role? They go on to write, recently I got a job offer. I will be taking it. Has all the good stuff, seemingly. Good environment, reputable household name brand, substantial jump in salary, work with content I'm familiar with. It's a bit more of a mid-level role, though, and despite having a good body of work behind me, working with some very technical stuff, I'm slightly nervous about the jump from kind of sort of being mid-level to officially being mid-level. Was wondering how people planned for or experienced a step up in seniority with human factors or UX, and what suggestions or advice they'd give for it. Barry, what was your jump from junior to mid like?
It was interesting. I think I was quite lucky that at the time I worked with a really good bunch of people. We were one of the largest human factors departments in the UK at the time, and it was my first official role as a human. Well, it was the first place that I worked that I'd officially got into the human factors domain at that point, and so I bounced quite a lot of my career up there, and it was interesting because everybody felt like they'd expected me to jump around the time before that I actually did. So everyone else was like, yeah, it's about time you got that jump. It was sort of expected, but I sort of internally, and we've spoken about this in the past, I do suffer from imposter syndrome a lot. And you do sit there going, there was that worry, that sort of, well, should I be doing this? How am I going to look at it? Because sometimes the mid role doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be managing. It just means you've got more responsibility within a project. When you might be signing stuff off, or you might be leading some bits, but you might not actually have staff managerial. So some people automatically equate it with, you're going to have a team and stuff like that. That's not necessarily the case, but you will have more responsibility. And generally, it's because you've got the experience to do it. People don't. You've got to remember that basically people don't promote you just for fun, or they shouldn't anyway, because that's a cruel joke. Generally you've earned that promotion because you've shown the competence to be able to do it. So there is an element there of just having the confidence in being able to go and do it. Sometimes you just got to wake up in the morning and just give yourself that talking to in the mirror that you are that great HF person and you can go and do it. What about you, Nick? When you made that sort of jump, what was it like for you?
You can do it. I think, okay, so there's two, I guess, pathways that I can see that someone might be able to get to that mid-level from a junior level, right? You have sort of promotion or soft promotion within a company that you've been working at, kind of moving up the ladder. And then you also have sort of the jump from one company to another, but you're jumping up a level. And I think one is inherently more difficult than the other. I think the jump from company to company is going to be the more difficult option. So I'm going to talk about the easy option first. And this was my experience. So it very much happens naturally in a company where you are sort of putting forth your work. And what happens is they see your work and they say, okay, now I want you to tackle this aspect of a project. And that is really sort of the mid-level role. I think you sort of enumerated it quite splendidly. There's sort of, you're not managing people, you're managing a part of a project. And whether that's like a task, a part, sort of an investigation into a piece of a project, you're still responsible for that. When you're taking on those responsibilities, you're no longer a worker bee. You are now sort of taking that ownership of that thing. And there are consequences when you don't take ownership of that thing. That to me is mid-level. And that's easier to do when you're in a company and you have people that understand your skill set and can evaluate what you are sort of capable of tackling for that mid-level. Now let's look at the other direction, right? This is jumping from a one company to another, but in that jump, you are moving from junior to mid. And this is a little tougher, but I think it's still doable, right? I think there's, again, I think, Barry, what you said is perfect. They're not going to hire you unless they think that, you're capable of doing the job. And so as long as you've been honest in the interview process and you think it's a good match, I think, there shouldn't be any issues. Really, you're going to be either taking on parts and pieces of the project. You're no longer just a worker bee. Now you're sort of a manager of pieces. And then, once you start getting to manage people, that's where it gets a little difficult. Because that's even more senior level, is when you're managing people and processes and taking ownership of entire projects. It's that's a different jump and maybe a story for another day. But any other closing thoughts on that one, Barry?
No, I think fundamentally it's possibly the most exciting jump you can make, because again you're not getting into personnel management, which I think is a whole different tool set. It's a whole different capability set, but you're getting to actually have real responsibility for bits, and you can see the return on that. You either deliver it well, or you don't, and that's quite an exciting time. You probably don't appreciate it at the time as much as you do when you fondly look back at it, but it is thoroughly make the most of it. It's a fun jump to do.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into this last part of the show. This needs no introduction. It's one more thing. Barry, what's your one more thing this week?
Well, it was an interesting thing for me this week. So throughout the year, we have to do, I guess, as all of us professionals have to do continuing professional development. So you record all the activities you've done in the year, your learning you've done, and through the CIHF, we get ours assessed, and you get the profile the amount of learning you've done, and you've reflected on it, and all that sort of stuff. Brilliant. And even though I'm an assessor, so I assess other people's CPD as well. I still get that nervous moment. So we have to submit it all by New Year's Eve. Submit it then, and you've got January gets assessed. You still have that nervous moment of what happens if I haven't done enough? What happens if whoever's reviewing my stuff has thought that just doesn't stack up? Anyway, I got my email, and thankfully, for another year, I've passed. I've pulled the wool over their eye. No, I've done sufficient amount of CPD to make that work. It did lead me to a question actually, because I know in the UK we've got with the CIHF, it's a chartered body, so we are chartered ergonomists, and a very great story behind that. It's brilliant. But actually, do you think chartership means much outside of the UK? Because HFES isn't chartered, so you don't become a chartered member of HFES. Does anybody care?
I don't.
What do you think?
I've never heard of it, and honestly, if I
Yeah.
saw it on a resume, I don't know if I'd pay much attention to it.
That's what I was thinking as well. It's an interesting one. It's an interesting discussion to have because it's the chartership is a fairly recent thing within the CIHF. Because I'm a chartered ergonomist and I'm a chartered engineer, which is also even more rare. But in other exciting news, I'm going back to my getting 2 for 1 approach.
Two more things.
My took on a new member of staff this week. It was my daughter.
I saw the picture on LinkedIn.
I know, it was awesome. I've just worked out how to rather than recruiting new staff, you just grow them. It's much easier.
You raise them. Teach them from birth to be human factors.
I've been teaching her human factor strategies and skills since basically she was in the crib, and now it's come to all that investment has come to fruition. So no, it was a really interesting time. So she's starting with us 2 days a week in between now and her starting university. And she's doing 3 different areas of the business so she can pick some of that up. It was just a really proud moment. And I can't wait. In fact, I've even written her into her first bid. And so she's more of an artsy background, and we've just put in a proposal for an artsy piece of work. So yeah, if we get it, then that'll be quite interesting.
That's awesome.
So what about you, Nick? What's your one more thing this week?
Well, last week, Barry, you and I had a wonderful discussion on the metaverse and what that all meant. And, one thing on my list, it's been on my list for a while. We talked about the Oculus Quest 2, right? And, well, it was my birthday this week, and I went ahead and I got one. Yay! Yeah, no, it's cool. So I'm actually really excited about it. There's now that I have it in my hands, I have a different assessment of the device than I did even a week ago. So I've been pretty positive on this device overall, and still am. I think it does a lot for convenience of VR. And the I guess markerless tracking and wireless headset is game changing. Like, I can't understate that. Amazing. Now, there are some clear
as I said, I'm sensing a but here somewhere.
There's some clear oversights with the product. I think this is not a full review. I'm not fully reviewing this, but the strap is lacking. I feel like there's stronger straps out there on the market, and there's some other things like my glasses actually don't even fit inside this thing very well. I have pretty wide frames, and so they have a hard time fitting. So I've gone and ordered myself a couple mods for it. So I have custom lenses with my custom prescription on the way for this sucker. I've also ordered a vent fan for the top of this, so that way as I'm getting sweaty playing Beat Saber, it'll just suck all that fog right out. And then the third thing I got was a better head strap, and this is one of those Halo head straps that kind of sits on your forehead and rests on your back. It has a battery pack on it too, so it'll kind of counterweight this thing. And it'll tighten around my head and the back of my head, and it won't kind of leave pressure on my eyes. And so with those mods, I'm hoping that this machine becomes sort of my preferred. It already is my preferred VR device. I'm really excited about it. That's my one more thing for this week. And that's going to be it for today, everyone. If you like this episode and enjoy some of the discussion about the psychology behind learning, I'll encourage you all to go listen to episode 223. That's where we talk about how AI can improve learning. Comment wherever you're listening with what you think of the story this week. For more in-depth discussion, you can always join us on our Slack or Discord communities. If you want to chat about VR with me, I'm happy to. You can always visit our official website. Sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date with the latest Human Factors news. If you like what you hear, you want to support the show, there are 3 things you can do. 1, leave us a 5-star review. 2, tell your friends about us. Or 3, consider supporting us on Patreon. We're 2 people away from being self-sustainable on Patreon. You could be those 2. As always, links to all the socials and our website are in the description of this episode. I want to thank Mr. Barry Kirby for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about listening to this podcast at twice the speed?
Well, they can go and find me on Twitter at Baz_K, or go and hit my podcast at 1202podcast.com.
As for me, I've been your host, Nick Roome. You can find me streaming sometimes, likely not for mental health reasons, but across social media at Nick_Roome. Thanks again for tuning into Human Factors Cast. Until next time,
It
depends. If you're sticking with us, stick around just a little longer. We're going to do a little post show here. Yeah, that was great.
I was on time and everything.
Yeah, I think it's just over. I think it's just over, but I can cut that. That's fine. Yeah, no, that was good timing.
I thought we could have actually gone on with that main story probably for about another half hour.
You think so? Yeah.
I think there was. I think we found the energy. It came up, and we got enthusiastic and motivated.
It was there.
It was there. I thought it was good. Yes, there is that bit though. I still can't get. Maybe it's because I'm, without being disparaging, I'm older, and I there's something about just not being adaptive with the form. But it wouldn't have. I don't think before this thing came out tonight, it wouldn't really have occurred to me to listen to a podcast or anything like that at a faster speed.
You've never listened to podcasts at twice the speed?
No, never have.
You mean when you used to listen to this show, you would do it at regular speed?
At regular speed. I wanted every every breath and every nuance that you and Blake were giving us. It's yeah. I was all over it.
Incredible.
But then I guess the way I consume my podcast is normally when I'm doing other things. So driving invariably when I'm commuting and things like that. But working in the garden or working in the workshop, whatever, I'd have it on there. So it was always, I never just sit there and think, right, I'm going to consume and learn this stuff. But maybe I will. Maybe I'm going to experiment a bit with that and see how that works.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, like for me, I got into podcasts when I was commuting 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes 5 hours a day. And so, I got to the point where I was listening to and there are many, many great podcasts out there. 1202 is the Human Factors podcast is one of them. And so, you find all these podcasts you really like, and then you're like, oh shoot, this podcast actually recommended another one that I need to listen to. And then you go, okay, well, my drive is 5 hours and I have 5 hour-long podcasts I want to listen to. That works out. But what happens when you add a 6th? Well, it doesn't work out anymore. Yeah. Now you got to find something that you need to occupy your time. And it's so weird because you have 5 hours a day that you need to kill commuting a day. That's 25 hours a week. So you have to go out, you have to find the stuff to consume, and you found it all. And now you're like, oh, this is great. And then each one of those has their own recommendations, and then you're like, okay, well, oh shoot, well maybe I add one more to my list. And then that becomes now 26 hours that you have to fill in the course of a week. Yeah. 26 hours that you have to place within the week.
You have to fit into 25 hours, yeah.
And then so you might bump it up to 1.25. And now everything's over 25% faster. And you're like, oh, okay. And that really doesn't have an impact on how you perceive. It really doesn't. If you are listening to this right now, well, I guess patrons, and if you're watching this after the fact, you can do this too. Play this at 1 times the speed. And then I'm going to speak I'm going to say this like 5 times, okay? So play this at 1 times the speed. 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 Play this at 1.25 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 times the speed. And you'll hardly notice a difference between those two, right? It is so small of a difference that you barely perceive it. And so here's the fun part. Another podcast recommends another podcast. And you're like, oh, shoot, now I have 27 hours worth of stuff that I need to fill in. Okay, well, maybe 1.3 will do it.
And then, it's a slippery slope.
It is a slippery slope. And then you get to the point where COVID happens and you're like, shit, I am no longer commuting this long and I need to call my podcasts. And so you cut out what's truly not important and you leave 1202, the Human Factors podcast, on your list.
Of course you do.
And, you try to find time for it.
We're not going to be bothered recording it, that is. So saying that, we're into the zone. I've got 4 interviews lined up. 5 interviews lined up. So
nice.
Hopefully, because I don't publish in January. So the first one will be coming in the next couple of weeks. So I tend to do. So I start in February, got all the way through to Christmas now. So and they're all getting lined up, and the people are being very approachable about it. And we got some
great.
Everything from farming in a precise. I can't remember the actual term for it now. I should know that because I was talking about just basically micromanaging of farming and the human factors involved in that. I've got 2 interviews coming up with that, so this should be interesting, really.
That is interesting. I think one of my favorite episodes that we did on this show was the cybersecurity of smart farms.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah,
I don't think I've heard of that one.
It was pretty interesting because they have drones that fertilize their crops, and what happens if somebody gets access to that drone and fertilizes a competitor's crops that's right across the way? It became very interesting, and you have these automated vehicles that harvest. What happens when somebody takes control of that automation? It was an interesting story, and something that I really hadn't considered. So I'm really excited that you're talking to them.
Cool. We shall link that in. That sounds really useful.
Yeah. Anyway, in terms of the twice the speed, so podcasts, I certainly do. I do it for YouTube videos. So you have not done it with anything?
No, not really. Because again, wouldn't YouTube videos just look stupid? Because suddenly things are going much quicker, and therefore you can't. If you're referencing what's going on the screen, you're going to miss stuff, surely.
Yeah. Yes and no. So like the way I do it, let's say it's for something procedural. Like if it's a tutorial, this is what I do. I usually play it at twice the speed, and I get the gist of what needs to happen.
Yeah.
And then as I'm doing it, I might play it back at 1 times the speed or even slower as I'm doing the thing to reference what they're doing.
Yeah. So I guess the analogy there is speed reading, isn't it? Because I do a lot of speed reading because I read a lot of reports, read a lot of stuff like that. But I don't go and read every single word or anything like that. I will speed read the papers, go through them, and literally I can go through them really, really quite quickly. Just hunting keywords and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And then if I find something interesting, I'm like, file that. And then go back and read that slower time, properly evaluate it and all that sort of stuff. So I guess that's sort of the equivalent, because I've done testing after that as part of a course I was on about how much information I was taking in of that. And surprisingly, I was taking more information in than I recognized. Because I was like, I'm not going to be able to retain any of this information. I'm just doing it, but I did. So I guess it's analogous.
Yeah, and I mean, I use it for leisure reading too. I used to listen to audiobooks in the car too, and I haven't stopped listening to audiobooks. I just find it. So the ones I listen to are a very cinematic experience. You have, music and like sound effects going on while you're listening to it, and character voices, and that's exciting to me because it feels like you're listening to a movie.
Yes.
But I also prefer to read along as I'm doing that, so that way, like, I can actually get some of the details. Because if you hear, like, I read a lot of Star Wars books, obviously, and there might be like a weird planet name that you're like, how is that spelled? I don't know. And so as you're reading along with it, you can kind of see, oh, it's this thing. That's what they're talking about. Or character names are spelled weird. And so, like, I want to make sure I'm reading along with the audio that has the lightsabers and the blasters and the music. It's all going.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. And so, yeah, I think for me, that is why I like to do both, and I pair both. And I've actually toned down. So when I was driving and listening to audiobooks, I used to do 2 times the speed. Since I've started reading along with them, I've toned it down. I've honed in on my reading speed, which is about 1.83 or something.
Right. Okay.
So like I'm reading along at the same pace, and it doesn't feel like I'm stressing to read. I'm getting every word, and that's nice. So I don't know. It's kind of cool to like read at the same pace that it's happening in your ear.
Yeah, because I normally use audiobooks when I'm driving, and actually that's why I got back into podcasts, because my wife said I was spending way too much on audiobooks, which is fair.
Go for the free stuff.
Yeah, no, I burned the free stuff. Went through that quite quickly, but then sort of did the whole, doing the audiobooks, and that was fine. But I was finding that if I could get into, you get into that state of I'm not actually listening to it; it's just happening. You sort of almost, you've fallen into it to a certain extent, because that makes it. What I was trying to get was to get this 6-7 hour journey that I was doing to disappear. And so the more I could just let it play and do that, I was trying to escape the drive, I think, in many ways.
Yeah.
And so that was what that was for. And I think I was always wanting to slow it down rather than speed it up because again, audiobooks they're not cheap, especially when you go for some of the longer stuff, and quite right too, because of the nature of what it is. That I'm not begrudging that at all, but they are still expensive. So yeah, no, it's an interesting concept. I think I'm gonna have to play with it and sort of see what happens.
Yeah, I'm so curious to hear about your more than 1.x or 1.0x experience.
I shall have to come back and report back next week with a full report and a quantitative and qualitative analysis.
Yeah,
and maybe a spreadsheet with maybe a cool chart or something.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Oh dear me!
What else is new?
I'm trying to think. It's nearly January's nearly over already.
I know.
I can't believe just how quickly this month has gone. We quite looking forward to sort of next month. Like I said, we've put ourselves out there a bit, and we might not get the work, but if we do, it'll be quite cool. Because we sort of talked about before, mainly work in defense. We've put ourselves out there for a different client.
Ooh.
And it is a very different client. It's not something I would normally do. And we'll find out. I think we find out tomorrow whether we've got it. So it's not a really big bit of work at all. It's a nice small bit of work, but it'll be such a change. It'll be such a different background, such a different audience, such a different type of data that we'll be analyzing and presenting. That it's not so, like I say, it's not a money spinner in any way. Literally, we're going for it because it's different, and so I'm quite looking forward to that. Quite looking forward to that bit of change, and it'll chime really nicely with the end of this big project that we've been doing, and so it'll be almost a change is as good as a break, as they say. So that'll be quite exciting to see if that happens.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. You got to let me know. We'll talk tomorrow, so you let me know.
Yes, that's true. Yes, by the time we talk tomorrow,
you will know. That's great.
I should know. Yeah. So I've been promised anyway. Unless they're too scared to tell me that we haven't got it, which is all entirely possible.
It is. So I want to talk about this thing. This thing is cool. When was the last time you used yours?
In fact, I haven't used it this year. But then that goes to being as busy as I have been.
Busy, right? It's only January.
I used it mid-December last
oh, okay.
Time, I think.
Not too bad.
You'll have to send me your username.
Oh, okay.
And then
Yeah,
you can
I will for sure do that.
But the no, I really like it. I think the immersion you can get off it for what it is and for what it costs, I think is phenomenal.
Yeah,
Um,
really.
the
I mean, like I got the less gigabyte model, so that way I
Mhm.
could spend a little bit more on some of the fun upgrades.
Yeah.
I was about to blow the 400 on the. And I was like, I can just manage it. I know it's a hassle, but I can do it.
It's not that much of a hassle. I don't think we've bust. In terms of the software on it, we haven't really bust, and I didn't really go for the big one either. We haven't really gone for any upgrades either. We're generally quite happy with it. There's the only thing that annoys me is the steaming up bit. You have to, it temperature.
So I gotta show you. I like once I get it, I'll show you. But it's literally just like a little vent fan that like plugs into the top. It's smaller than this. It's probably like this size. You just plug it in right to the top, and it blows the air out the front. It sucks it up from the bottom and blows it out the front. I'm really excited for it. It has a longer battery life than this will last you. But if you need more battery life on it, you can always plug it into the thing, and it'll drain it from that.
Yeah, that's cool.
But like I said, the headset that I got, or the Halo that I got, has a swappable battery in the back.
That's useful as well. Yeah.
Oh, so good.
The one thing that surprised me, so we've had ours like a year now, maybe just over a year, and so I had to do the battery change in the hand controllers for the first time.
Oh yeah,
that took me a while to work out how to make that happen. But
you just lay these suckers down.
But I know that now. Where were you when I needed to do that?
No, I'm just for anyone else who's watching right now, you just slide the sucker down. I've done the on the controllers. I've done the like hack where you wrap it around the top ring. So that way, that way your hand, if you throw it.
I need to do that for my son. I generally keep on not putting my hands through them.
But you're more likely to if it's like this, right?
Yeah. That's it. That is also a neat idea. I like it. So what are your games of choice at the moment then?
So right now I'm playing Beat Saber, I've modded it to allow for custom songs, which is just absolutely game changing. Because now you can play basically any song that you can think of. Somebody's, made a cover or somebody's made a map for.
Okay, that's cool.
I do plan on playing through some of the Star Wars ones. I've played through Vader Immortal on the PlayStation VR. I might replay it on this. I might just buy it for novelty's sake, so I have all the Star Wars stuff on my device, because that's something that anyway. There's also Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, which is not available anywhere else, and that's something that I really want to get, and will. I plan to. I just need the time to sit down and do it. And it's going to be like, I don't know, a weekend where everyone's preoccupied with other stuff, and I can just lock myself in a room and do it.
Doesn't happen anymore, dude. You got small children.
I know. One. I mean, it might still be somewhat easy. The biggest drawback to this thing, I got to show you this. So, I can't see what you're doing or what your reaction is right now because these are off. But, so here's the goggles, right? They go on your face like so, and so let me show you how these fit with my glasses. So you try to put them in, and they just can't. So it's sucky because you got to push from both sides, and you got to get it in there. And then when I take off the glasses, take off the goggles, they stick like that. So I'm really, really looking forward to these prescription lenses that I got.
How long are they going to take?
About a month, I think, is what they're saying, because they got a custom, they're custom to my prescription.
That's good.
So I can theoretically just throw these on and it'll be good. They attach kind of to so the way it works is they will give you a It's like a ring that goes around these. It kind of fits over
Okay,
the current lenses, and it has magnets attached, so you can just pop them in, and then if you need to share it with somebody else, you just pop them off, and then they just attach via magnets.
Have you got any plans on sharing it at all?
I mean, you know, if it's at a party or something and people are curious about VR, you know, just throw it around, be like, hey, here's you can be in Star Wars for.
It is cool for like when you go and take the, you know, like I'll go and see my cousins and my nieces and nephews and things like that. They can play with it. They quite enjoy doing that. But it'll be interesting to see how it evolves from that, because I wonder kind of where it goes from here. Apart from getting the aesthetics a bit better, because I think actually the quality of the VR I think is really good. And the difference between the Oculus Rift and that is as soon as I started playing with the Rift, it was very much of a, you need a headset. Where's the headset? Why have they not integrated 3D sound into this thing? Whereas now they've got that nailed, and I think it works just so well as a consumer product.
Yeah, I mean, it's got everything. I mean, I am blown away the fact that you have full blown VR, no cables,
no tethers, no, absolutely
nothing, and
it
works.
Battery life on it. You know, you don't need to charge it all the time to make it work. It's just really cool, and it'll do the see-through stuff, which is if you can. So you basically got AR there as well.
Yeah.
I think that'll be the next step with it. Will be it'll be better AR version of stuff. But no, I'm quite a fan. The interesting bit, and I was sort of reflecting on this after last week's episode, was it's still an event to put it on. So you have to find, you have to make sure you got space, that everybody knows that you're going in.
Well, it'll recognize that you're in a certain space. If you've mapped out a space before, it'll recognize that you're in that space. It'll pick up on the cues in the environment and go, oh yeah.
Yeah, more what I mean is so I've got it mapped in my bedroom, so we've got a significant space, but you still got it right. I'm going to go and play with the Oculus.
Right, you got to announce it.
You got to sort of go, you've got to get your headspace into it. You've got to go and do it. Then I've got to make sure that, yes, I know the space is mapped out, but I've got to make sure all my clothes are picked up off the floor and make sure that the space is physically clear. Then you put it on, and then you go and do your thing. It's still not as easy as just sitting at the computer starting up a game.
Right.
So, but the quality of the entertainment is so much better.
It is.
So it's interesting. It's I mean, I have downloaded Netflix for it as well, but I've never really sat there and watched a Netflix movie with it. That hasn't been. It just hasn't played it for me. What I do want to do is download the first moon landing, the Apollo landing, because I did that on PSVR, and it was mind blowing.
Yeah,
I thought it was amazing. So I wanted to download it on this, and because there was an ISS simulator that you can get. I think it's free. And I thought it would be amazing. It just gives him sickness.
Have you played around with SideQuest at all?
No, not at all.
It's the service that allows you to sideload, like, not
other content.
Yeah, other content. There you go.
Yes.
Onto this thing. I was gonna say not officially sanctioned. Yeah, I've played with that a little bit, and that's where I got the modded Beat Saber from. Like I said,
was that easy to do?
Slight learning curve. I mean, like, I was able to do it in a couple hours. Like, I think if I had somebody hand holding, there were some very good tutorials that I found that really helped. I was trying to do it mobily, and that's different than PC, and I had some unique, I guess, requirements that made that necessary. And so, yeah, it's not too bad.
I'm looking up.
I do want to try. There's a way to turn on pass through if you tap the side of this thing, and I haven't figured out how that works. Like, I've turned on the option, but it just won't like allow me to pass through. I can see right now, right?
Yeah.
Oops, that's not it. Where's the?
But that's it. If they can get that working reliably, and
and I mean, like,
cool,
it's
will be.
still, gray. It's what is it, black and white? So, like, I'm not seeing anything of I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Value here. Is this good content? I'm just sitting here in VR and you're just like talking to me. Is that?
It's the. I mean, I guess that would be. Could we be doing in maybe a year's time doing this recording, but actually doing it in VR rather than doing it?
I was just about to bring us up in VR. So we're recording this live here. Hang on, I'm gonna bring us up in VR here.
Oh.
Oh yeah, there I am. Wow, I am. Oh, that's really unflattering. I don't know. See, look, my glass is stuck in. So I don't know if you can see inside the. Wait, you see through my prescription.
I don't think your prescription is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
I think
the lens itself. Here,
yeah.
Let's see. I don't know. You can't see.
Nah. I can see.
You can see the loading.
But
anyway, yeah, I was watching us in VR over here. That was kind of fun. And
but I wonder if we could do it so we have so we actually wear the goggles and actually do this discussion in a virtual space.
That'd be kind of cool. Like there's like VR chat.
I think there's got to be something around that. We as a special event or something. We could try and do something.
Special Human Factors Cast VR event. If that's something that anyone listening to this or watching this is interested in, let us know. We can.
And ideally wants to sponsor. Knock yourself out.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I think we spoke the other week about doing some sort of joint event, HFES and CIHF stuff. And I know you spoke to your people, I spoke to my people.
Yes.
And I think we could get something going here.
Oh, exciting!
So we'll chat about it more tomorrow. But I think there is definitely an appetite out there for doing something town hall-y or something like that. A collab, and I think it'll be quite a good laugh.
Yeah, I think so too.
So we can all basically mock each other's accents and things like that, because isn't that what you do when you do multinational collaborations?
That is what we do.
But
it's got a fancy accent over there.
Yeah, we also do sort of humor much better as well. Irony.
Yes.
You Americans don't get irony.
Yeah, I think it's I think that's a generalization, but I think it's an appropriate generalization. I think you're right. There is
actually, considering there is quite, when you talk about the difference between the UK and US, and I got married in the US, and so we spent time in both. You'd think that there is some significant culture differences, there is some significant background differences, but actually they don't really come up that often. I wonder whether it is the pervasiveness of, different, we have so many American TV shows over here and things like that actually most of it just gets knocked out and you just don't notice it. It was more when we came over and visited, and actually not so much on holiday, but stayed with my in-laws who were living over there at the time. We actually got to live with, basically live in real communities, not tourist communities. That you started noticing them differences, which were quite interesting.
Yeah, interesting is one word for them.
It's, no, I mean, we thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it was probably one of the earliest shocks for me was, I guess the attitude to alcohol. That's interesting. So we were in St. Louis, so obviously you go to the Budweiser factory and do the Budweiser tour, and we also we went to some friends' houses and stuff for drinks and stuff afterwards, which was all very nice. And we went to this one guy's house, and it was good fun. And he, would you like a beer? I was like, yeah, I'd love a beer. That'd be brilliant, thank you. He opens up his fridge. We're in the basement, obviously. He opens up the fridge. What beer would you like? And he had Bud Light, Bud Extra Light, Bud Super Light, and Bud. I'm fairly sure it's got alcohol, and he saw it maybe 3 weeks ago or something like that. And So obviously, from a UK perspective, we just drink Bud, and we think Bud's quite weak anyway. And so I was like, "I'll have a Bud." Oh, I'm not. Oh, we can't drink that super strong stuff. That's not okay. And it's just again, it's just a different attitude to alcohol, which
I don't know. I've never heard that. I've never heard Bud Light as being strong.
Yeah, well, this was an experience for me. So
yeah,
but it was quite good fun. And I quite like, because we got married in St. Louis. I quite like to go back to St. Louis again. Go and see how the place has changed since, because we've been married quite a long time now.
Yeah, maybe HFES will go there one year. You can come on over.
We should try and sort something out. So we do some sort of joint thing in person where HFES pays for it all.
Yes, there you go.
There we
That's
go.
the trick, right?
I'm told.
All right.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Well, I think it's midnight for you. So
it's my bedtime now. So
it is
I'm
your
gonna,
bedtime.
Yes.
I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you, everyone, if you've been sticking around with us for the entire duration of this rambling human factors, people rambling event thing that we call a podcast. Yeah, we'll be back next week. And if you are interested in the lab, again, I'll plug that. Let us know.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, maybe.
Cool. All right, then. I shall say goodnight, and I shall, speak to you tomorrow.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for tuning in.
Bye.
See you next week.